So I want to get ready to add pagination, and we want that on this properties page. However, this is a server rendered page, and we need to do some dynamic stuff. So instead of making the properties page itself client side, let's put all this stuff into a client side component called properties. All right, so first off, let's go to app properties and then page.jsx, right? And instead of fetching this way on the server side component, we're going to have a client side component and just do the regular use effect. So I believe I said back in that video that we'll be changing some of this stuff later on. Because that's what happens. You create something a certain way, but then you want to implement a new feature and you have to change things up, right? It's just part of development. So in components, I'm going to create a new file called properties.jsx. Okay, and I'd rather not have the logic of fetching the properties in the main page anyway. I like, as you can tell, I like to split things up into separate components. So now what we're going to take from here, let's see, we're going to, trying to think of how I want to do this. So this section right here, we want to keep the search form and stuff in here, but this section, let's just cut this. And then we'll put that in properties, let's say RAFCE, and then put that right in there. Okay, and then let's see, back in page.jsx, we're going to import properties. We no longer need property card. We can get rid of that. And then let's see, down here under the section, we're going to add properties like that. Okay, now that's going to break because it says properties is not defined. So there's a few ways we could do this. We could pass in properties as a prop, but like I said, I want to do the fetching from that component. So we're actually going to get rid of this stuff here. And we're not going to be using that fetch properties from the request file, at least for this. All right, so we'll save that, and then that's still going to be broken, obviously. Let's go back to the properties.jsx, and let's bring in the stuff that we need here. So first off, we'll make it client. Then we're going to import use state and use effect. Then we're going to import property card. I'm just going to change that to the alias property card, and then we also want the spinner. All right, now let's create a couple pieces of state. So one for our properties and one to set properties. And if you want to pause the video and do this stuff yourself, again, that's a great way to learn and kind of, use what you've learned. Set that to an empty array. Then we're going to do our loading, which is going to be true. So set loading. All right, and then down here where we have the return, let's say return, and if loading, then we want to show the spinner. Okay, else, then we want to show this. And we'll add our use effect. Okay, and let's see, in here we're going to just do a simple fetch. Actually, we have to create a function, asynchronous function. Let's call this fetch properties. Make sure you do async. Okay, let's say const res await fetch, and we're still going to be hitting that /API/ properties, and it's a GET request, so we don't have to add anything else. Let's check the response. If res dot, oh, we'll just say if not res dot okay. I mean, you can do it either way, but if it's not okay, then actually, you know what? We'll do it this way, I guess. We'll throw new error, and let's say failed to fetch data. All right, and then if everything's okay, then we're going to get the data from await res.json, and then we're going to set the properties to that data, and we're going to set loading. Actually, we'll do a finally for the loading, but in the catch, we'll just do a console log of error, and then let's say finally, and then set loading to false. And before I forget, we need to call the function. So right here, we'll say fetch properties, and now we'll go ahead and save that, and it works again. Okay, so except all this stuff now is in this properties.jsx. So now we have everything set up so that we can start to implement pagination, which is what we'll do in the next video.